doubt, no doubt. So let's talk about Kedon Slovis. You know, I was impressed. I really was. It doesn't take much time to watch him on film and realize that guy has a live arm and some NFL potential. I want to get your thoughts on how he progressed as the season went on. What do you see him as far as a prospect goes for the NFL? Let's also talk about JT Daniels. You know, I think that he is kind of in an unfortunate situation with the ACL tear. You know, God bless his heart. I hope he comes back healthy and dominates. He's not the starting quarterback anymore at USC. I understand the decision Clay Helton made, but I still think that JT Daniels has some talent. You know, I think that he underwhelmed me a little bit, just from projecting what he could have became from high school because he was a 5-star recruit to what he put out on the actual college football field. I think that he still needs to work on the little things, but I still think there is some talent with JT Daniels, and there is some talk that he potentially is going to return to USC. So what are your thoughts on both of those quarterbacks as prospects, and is there still hope for JT Daniels?
Man, I'll start with JT, and I actually have a funny story. After going to one of the football games, and this was after he got hurt, my friends and I, we were walking back to our dorm, and as we're walking back, we're on kind of the alleyway that a lot of the athletes have to go through once they leave the locker room. And as we're walking back, we're on the sidewalk, and we're all talking, having fun and whatnot, and we hear a voice behind us, and we're like, it's just like, excuse me, cripple coming through. Just the saddest, most depressed voice you could ever hear. Mind you, Keaton had a brilliant night, right? Just a sad voice, excuse me, cripple coming through. And it's JT Daniels on one of those electric scooters, just the ones you have to sit down like you're an old lady in the grocery store, just rolling on through, man. But that dude just looked sad, man. And I felt genuinely bad because, like you said, that dude was a hell of a high school quarterback. He just ran through the Trinity League. And when I say he ran through the Trinity League, mind you, the Trinity League is probably the best high school football league in the entire nation. We're talking about schools like Mater Dei, J. Sarah, St. John Bosco. These are the schools that you have to compete with when you're in the Trinity League. And JT ran through all of them. Where I think his biggest mistake was, I think he went to college a little too early. I know he reclassified. So essentially, he was a high school, what should have been a high school senior, actually starting at quarterback for USC in his first year. He wasn't ready, man. As good as he was in high school, the dude wasn't ready to take on that much of a load, and it showed because he wasn't the guy that everyone expected him to be. And then in year two, he obviously had the injury. And Keaton, that dude just handled that entire situation with such poise. Not once would he ever assert, I should be the starting quarterback. He's thought it. But he never came for JT in any sort of way. But the poise that he handled himself with on the field, man, there were so many times where it was almost a guaranteed sack that Keaton would somehow find his way out of, keep his eyes downfield, maintain his poise, find a Michael Pittman all the way downfield wide open. This dude, at such a young age, for him to have that level of poise and maturity as a quarterback, not only on the field but off of it, Kedon Slovis is. I'm such a huge fan of his, man. Such a huge fan. And it's weird to say because the dude is literally my age. But I played quarterback. We talked about how I wanted to be a quarterback at Stanford, man. I know how tough it is to play that position and play it at the level that he does. And for him to take on that much of a load at that age and to be that successful with it, it's miraculous, man. It is miraculous. And I think, he's definitely an NFL caliber prospect. Some years down the line, he's by no means a perfect quarterback. He still has some developing to do, particularly in his short range accuracy. But yeah, I think when it's all said and done, I'm not sure how long Keaton is going to stay at USC. I think there's a decent chance that by the end of his junior year, the dude might be headed for Sundays, man. In regards to JT, though, I still think he's a guy that has enough talent to make it to the NFL. Like you said, I think he just got a raw deal in terms of what happened at USC. He never really got the opportunity to show the full extent of his abilities. And I know a lot of people, man, they're just completely out on him. They think he's a bust. They think he was an overrated prospect coming out of high school. By no stretch of the word, you don't run through the Trinity League the way that JT Daniels did unless you're a talented quarterback. I just think he fell into an unfortunate situation. And if he plays his card right, whether he stays at USC or whether he goes somewhere else and transfers and tries to go start for another school in the near future, if he ends up in the right situation, there's no reason that I don't think JT Daniels could be a very, very, very good quarterback. Again, he just got a raw deal, man. He got a raw deal.
We'll leave that there. Okay, so I want to talk about expectations for USC football next year. Obviously, great quarterback coming, this next year in Keaton. I think that he's going to be a star, and I think that he has some Heisman Trophy potential in him, okay? And so, obviously, USC, looking at their schedule, I'm just going to highlight some key games. Alabama, Now, there's some potential that might not be the game for week 1 due to, the whole college football with the COVID-19 whole situation. Are you going to play Alabama week 1? We don't know. But for now, we'll say Alabama is the week 1 matchup on a neutral site. Tough game. Probably not going to win that one. But either way, at Stanford, Arizona State at home. At Utah, they had a pretty good year last year. At Arizona, probably a winnable game. At Oregon, I think Oregon is probably one of the better Pac-12 teams. I think that they're going to have a very good year. Washington has a new coach, but you get them at home, so there's potential to win that game too. Then Notre Dame at home as well. So looking at USC's schedule, what are your expectations for the team next year, and what's a realistic goal for the team as far as a win total? I do think that they will definitely make a bowl game, no doubt, but what do you think is going to be the record, potentially? What's a realistic expectation?
I think it's realistic to think that the team should lose no more than 1 to 2 games, and I say that wholeheartedly. And the fact that you brought up the Alabama game, I'm not so sure they lose that one, man. And here's why. Let me tell you why, because I know that is a huge leap to take, right? To say that
understandable, yeah,
could beat an Alabama team. But here's the thing: Alabama every year, we know they lose a plethora of starters to the NFL, right? So when you lose that much talent, you have to get some people to replace it. And Alabama does a good job of recruiting every year, and they always have a pool of talent to pick from. But then at the end of the day, you have to, get that talent ready to play on the field on Saturdays. And the fact that we have this whole coronavirus thing going around, and the fact that the team can't be on the field practicing and running through the plays and making those mistakes in practice, I think that hurts Alabama a lot because they had a lot of players to replace on the field. Meanwhile, USC is a team that barely lost any starters to the NFL this past season. So you have a bunch of guys who already know the system that they're coming into. They're familiar with it, whereas Alabama might not be in the same situation. A lot of those guys lack the experience that the guys at USC have. So I'm not so sure they don't go win that game, man. I really think that there's a decent chance that USC goes down there and punches that Alabama team in the mouth and really shocks the world. I think it's a realistic expectation to say, like I said, they only lose 1 to 2 games. I'm not going to go so far as to say that they're going to be competing for a college football playoff berth, but I do think that, it's reasonable to think that they should finish in the top 10. They were arguably one of the best not even arguably, they were one of the best offenses in all college football last season. Like I said, Todd Orlando's bringing that defensive intensity, so they're making up for that lacking area. And I just think that I think they win the Pac-12. I think they finish top 10, top 15. With only 1 to 2 losses, man. This team is immensely talented, and they were young last year. All of those guys are coming back bigger, stronger, faster, more experienced. This team's only getting better.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points. I can't wait to watch USC next year. And we're going to wrap things up, man. I appreciate you for coming on. This was great talking to you.
It's a pleasure, man.
Yeah, no doubt. You're doing great things. Be sure to subscribe to my guy Reagan Griffin Jr.'s podcast, The Reagan Griffin Jr. Show. Be sure to check him out on Hoop and Holler podcast. Just type in Hoop and Holler to podcasting platforms. You'll find them via Square One Media. He does a lot of good things. Man, I appreciate you for coming on. This was fun. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I currently am a freshman there right now. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God-blessed day, and I'm out.